Hey everybody, Ryan here. Alright, let's get started with the team stats as of February 21st. Only one game has been finished today. That is the game between New Jersey and Washington as of this recording. So there are 3 more games to go, but they will not be incorporated into this. Alright, if you have not done it already, hit that subscribe button. We are getting close to the 50 subscriber point. So help me out, almost there, 11 more to go. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Alright, other than that, let's get started with the team stats for the NHL. Last week we had Toronto leading the league with 11 wins, followed by Boston and Tampa as the only other 10 game winners. Let's see if we got any more. We do! Toronto's up to 14 wins as of this week. That is an increase of 3. Carolina and Edmonton sit at 12 wins each, Florida with 11, Boston, Vegas, Tampa, Winnipeg, and St. Louis with 10, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Montreal, and Chicago with 9. So a lot of teams got some wins this week. I mean, Carolina's a big jump, 12 wins, so they jumped up 3. Edmonton jumped up 3. So some teams, the nice thing about seeing these stats, you can see who had a good week and who did not. Because if you went from 8 wins last week and you aren't even on this list, you didn't win a game. Which here means you've been on protocol or your opponent's been on protocol. Or you had a very, very bad week. Because let's see, Winnipeg had 8, and they jumped up 10. Philadelphia and Florida had 8. Florida jumped up to 11. Good week. That means 3 wins in the week, so that's usually a pretty good week, even if you play 4 games. Not bad. And, oh, what was the other one? Philly. Let's see, Philly. Ooh. I do not see Philly on this list. That means they didn't win a game. That's not a good week, Philly. Alright, losses. Not a category you want to lead. Last week was led by Ottawa with 12. Let's see, who got worse? I can see one team that is my favorite team that if you don't know who that is, you haven't been watching. And they have gone worse, I can tell you that much. Alright, this is where we sit with the losses as of now. Ottawa is at 14 regulation losses. Detroit 12, Vancouver 12, Nashville 10. So we have 4 teams with 10 or more losses now. Ouchie. Let's see. Calgary and Anaheim, like I said, my favorite team, Anaheim, lost 3 games this week. Horrible week. Horrible. Calgary also is at 9 though, so old rivals there, so kind of like, okay. But it sucks because Calgary honestly had picked to be top of their division, and they're not. Making me look kind of dumb now, Calgary. How dare I pick you? Anyways, Edmonton is 8. Yeah, they're towards the top of their division. Columbus with 7. Buffalo, New York Rangers, Arizona Coyotes, and San Jose also with 7 losses. Alright, points-wise, last week we had Toronto at the top with 23. They were the top team in the entire league. I'm sure Toronto fans were going, yeah, let's keep this up. Let's see if they do. And they did. Toronto has 30 points as of this week, so 7-point increase. They're 14-3-2, where last week 11-3-1. So they lost 1 game in overtime with 3 wins. Pretty good week. I mean, that Ottawa game, yeah, they came back and won it, but yeesh, not a great showing at the same time. Carolina is second with 25 points, followed by Florida and Edmonton with 24, Chicago, Boston, St. Louis with 22, Vegas, Winnipeg, and Tampa round out the top 10 with 21 points each. So all the top 10 have 20 points now, where last week our top 18, because of ties, bottomed out 18 points. So teams got up there. They're finally getting them. They're finally getting those wins. You start seeing teams separate from others. So now we're getting to see who is, I don't want to use the word better, but who has been a better team thus far. than the others. Alright, goals against. Vancouver led last week in this unfortunate category that you don't want to lead in, with 67 goals against. Yikes. There is a reason Vancouver has not been a great team so far this year. And defensively and goaltending wise, that is one of them. Who leads it this week? Oops, I went the wrong direction. Ottawa leads now with 78 goals against. Yikes. Ottawa went from 64 goals against last week to 78. 14 goals against this week. Not gonna win you games. Vancouver's second was 74, Detroit 64, Columbus 63, Edmonton 62, Nashville and San Jose 57, Washington 55, Chicago 54, Calgary and St. Louis 54 each as well. So that's where we're sitting with goals against. I mean, Edmonton and Washington and Chicago and St. Louis are all playoff teams as of right now, and they're on this list. Has not been a great showing for those teams so far, at least offensively. I mean, they're still getting the wins, but that's because they can score goals too. Alright, on to goals against average per game. Ottawa led last week with 4 goals against on average per game. Yikes. Out of these 10, as of last week, only Washington and Edmonton and Columbus were in the playoff race. Or in the playoffs at that point, as of the standings. Pittsburgh was in the race. Alright, this week, it got worse. Ottawa went up to 4.11 goals against, where San Jose went up to 3.56. Last week they were at 3.69. Actually, they dropped, so that's not too bad, but they went up to second worst. Because Vancouver went from 3.72 to 3.52. Vancouver fans, something to cheer for. They allowed 0.2 less goals per game. Thank you for that 1/5 less of a goal. Alright, anyways. Washington 3.44, Nashville 3.35, Columbus 3.32, Pittsburgh 3.31, Detroit 3.2, Edmonton 3.1, and then a 4-way tie between Philly, Calgary, Buffalo, and St. Louis with 3 goals against. Some of these are actually playoff teams, and they are allowing a lot of goals against. I mean, who is it? Washington? They have 3.31 goals for per game average to 3.44 goals against. So you allow more goals against, yet you're a playoff team. What is happening? Edmonton, same thing. Well, kind of. Edmonton allows 3.1 goals against per game versus 3.6 goals for per game. So they score more than they allow, but they allow too many to really get to that point where people are like, oh man, they're a real dangerous team. They can't stop the puck, but they can shoot the puck into that net pretty dang easily with McDavid and Draisaitl. You gotta get better defensively if you want to pull off a win when it matters most. I mean, you can get lucky, because that's all sports are about. It's more about luck than anything else. Because you know what? You watch the playoffs, a lot of the winning goals end up being stupid little goals that bounce off of someone's leg. It's not usually those super beautiful goals that you see in like shootouts or on breakaways during the regular season, because a lot of times you don't get those kind of chances in the playoffs. It's a whole different game in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. But unless you can reduce that goals against, that ain't gonna matter much. Yeah, it's a half a goal difference between the two, but you don't score half goals in the NHL. You score goals, or you allow a goal. You don't go, hey, I love that half goal that you scored. That was a great half goal. Thank you. It doesn't work that way. So this is just percentages, but that percentage is not great. Not where you want it to be. Just an example. I'm not trying to pick on Edmonton. It's because they're a playoff team. Washington you can make fun of too, because They allow more goals than they score at this point. St. Louis is down there too, and they're in the playoffs. So, just because you're a playoff team does not mean you're the best in each category, at any stretch. Last year San Jose was the best penalty kill in the league, and they were the third worst team in the entire league. How does that happen? Just some of the weird things. I'm just giving you some perspective on these things. Anyways, moving on. Goals for. Last week Edmonton led. This week Edmonton is tied for the lead with Toronto with 72 goals for. It went from 55 for Edmonton and 53 for Vancouver. Or, I'm sorry, not Vancouver, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Toronto. Sorry. Yeah, Toronto had 53. Although Vancouver had 53 too. But that's a huge jump. 19 goals for Toronto over last week. And Edmonton, let's see, 17 goals for this week. High scoring teams. Got it. Vancouver has 61 goals. They score a lot of goals. Vancouver does not have a problem with the goal scoring all the time. Sometimes they do. Because there was a stretch where it seemed like they couldn't score a goal for the life of them, and they allowed like 5,000 goals, it felt like. I'm sure Vancouver fans can agree, it feels like some games, like they can't stop a dang goal. And then there's other games where it feels like they can score 1 million goals. So you just don't know what you're going to get from this team night in, night out. Carolina, 59 goals for. Very solid year for Carolina so far. They look like a good team. They don't get the recognition because they play out of Carolina. It's not your traditional hockey market. So they don't get the respect that like someone like Toronto or Edmonton or Vancouver would get, or even a St. Louis. Bigger markets. So they get more views than someone like Carolina. Carolina's won a Stanley Cup, so it's not like they're a slouch franchise by any stretch. And I do love the fact that the reverse retro jerseys are Hartford Whaler jerseys. That is awesome. Anybody who tells me otherwise is a hater of Hartford Whalers. You're evil. No, okay, you're not evil. But still, it's an awesome jersey. It's just always fun to see him go back to that one. Alright, St. Louis has 58 goals for. They have the problem of they can't stop a goal either this year. Losing Pietrangelo is really hurt, and losing Parenko now to injury, that could get worse. Winnipeg, 57 goals for. Florida, 55. Chicago, Montreal, also 55. And then Columbus and Tampa, 54 goals for each. That's a Tampa team that's been missing Stamkos for a little bit. And a Tampa team that has not had Nikita Kucherov play a single game this season. Oh, and Anthony Cirelli's hurt too. So, dang. Ugh. Even when they're down, they can't lose. So, that's where we're sitting with the goals for. Now let's look at the goals for per game average. Led by Tampa last week with 3.85. Decently good. No, okay, that was very good. Compared to the Ducks, 1.88 goals for at the very bottom of the league. All I can say is I hope Zegras is the savior that they made him out to be. Because, God, we suck offensively. Anyways, Toronto leads this week with 3.79. So, Tampa went down, obviously. But Toronto leads with 3.79. Carolina with 3.69. Tampa down at 3.60, tied with Edmonton. Florida is tied with Montreal with 3.44. Philly with 3.43. Winnipeg with 3.35. Dallas 3.33. And Washington 3.31. So, a lot of teams with 3.3 or higher. The goals for per game went down from the leader, 3.85 last week, to 3.79 for Toronto. And the leader went down 3.6. So, that's where we're at. Power play percentage, this one's always fun for me to watch because you can see who had a good week and who did not, based off of who drops and who does not. Leading last week was Washington with 37%. Very good number. This week, Washington is down at 7th with 29.3%. That's a huge drop. Leader is now Toronto with 37.5. Toronto went from third with 34.1 last week to 37.5. Good power play week for them, right? Dallas 33.3, Buffalo 32.6%, Chicago 32.2%. Part of the reason Chicago is even in the playoff picture, that and their goalie Lankinen has played out of this world. Florida 30.4%. Those are your only 5 teams with 30% or higher. Next up is Boston 29.8. It just seems ridiculously low considering it seems like Pastrnak, Bergeron, or Marchand is always scoring a power play goal. Feels like it's never ending. Washington 29.3, Carolina 28.9, Edmonton 26.4. It's actually kind of low. It seems like it'd be more if you had McDavid and Draisaitl, but their power play has not been the greatest this year, where it feels like it should have been and has been in the past. Tampa 25.5. They're down there probably because they lost Stamkos. I mean, Stamkos alone can score you quite a few power play goals easily with that shot. Alright, let's go on to penalty kill. Colorado led last week with 89.7. Now, they start playing again, so I have a feeling they may have dropped a little bit, considering they hadn't played in almost 2 weeks. So, you might have a drop for them. Let's see. No, actually you didn't. 89.6. So they dropped 0.1%. That is not a bad drop at all, considering you haven't played in 2 weeks, and they played 3 games in that time. So Colorado still leads with 89.6. Very good penalty kill. Boston's next with 88.9. Vegas 87. Minnesota 86.5. Tampa 86.3. New York Rangers 85.7. Anaheim Ducks, that's a shocker, 85.4. Look at that power play percentage for them, 7.5%. Can't imagine why I can't score a freaking goal. Oh, look at that, 1.83 goals for per game now. So irritating. Moving on. Oh god, they disappoint me so. Arizona 84.5%, LA 83%, and Vancouver 82.7%. So it's your top penalty kills. I mean, Anaheim's in the top 10. That's about the only category they probably will be. And goalie shutouts. Alright, so there's all the stats. Great week for quite a few teams. Toronto's had an amazingly good week. I mean, it feels like they didn't, the way the media portrays them during the week. Portrays it like, oh, how are they faltering? They're doing awful. They won 3 out of 4 games. How's that awful? Yeah, one of those they could have really easily been blown out of by Ottawa, but still. They still won the game. It doesn't matter in the long run. I mean, other than like some of the breakdown stats like you just saw. It affects some of those, but overall, it doesn't make much of a difference as long as you win. That's the big thing. Winning is winning. But all of it doesn't matter unless you can win when it matters most in the playoffs, which, I'm sorry to say, Toronto fans, has not been in your repertoire since '67. I know, I'm letting that sink in, I'm sorry. That I'm not trying to make it a low blow, but it is reality. You had quite a few good runs in the early 2000s, late 90s. I mean, probably your best chance. Honestly, I think the team that could have won it all for Toronto was the year they lost in conference finals to LA, when LA lost to Montreal in the finals. Let's be honest, if we had seen Toronto versus Montreal in those finals, that would have been an amazing matchup. Amazing. But it didn't happen, unfortunately. And if you don't know why, go look it up. Right now, Toronto fans are wishing nothing but death upon Carey Fraser. Sorry, Carey Fraser. Best of luck in retirement and your health. But Toronto fans still probably don't like you. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm sorry. It's not my fault. You made the call. Moving on. Sorry, Toronto fans. But I mean, teams like that, if you can't win when it matters most, look at Washington. They don't get the respect for a long time. They finally win one. They beat Vegas that year. 2 years ago. They finally win it. I mean, how many chances did they have? I mean, they had a ton. They were known as chokers for a long time. It will happen eventually. I mean, look at baseball. Chicago Cubs, 100 plus years between championship wins. How many franchises in the NHL can say it's been 100 years since it won? None. None at all. So there you have it. These are just stats. Just remember that. In the regular season at that. Okay? So you can read into them. You can see what teams are doing, how they're trending. But it does not always signify everything that the team's made of. Like Dallas last year, if you go by the regular season stats, how the heck did they make the finals? They were not a great team in the regular season. But in the playoffs, they were. Because in the playoffs, it matters more about who has the experience. Who has the guys who have the drive. Sometimes those older teams can be the best teams because they have the most experience and they want to win. Not saying the young guys don't, but they may not want it as bad because they can in their head say, oh, I lost this year. I got quite a few more years. Where someone like, let's just use an example last year, Corey Perry, could go, this is probably one of my last chances ever. I mean, that drives you a little bit more. Or even like Colorado the year they won with Ray Bourque. Let's be honest. That Colorado team was not the best team that they had ever had. But they played out of this world in order to get Ray Bourque that one championship. One thing he never had in his career. That's what makes teams like that dangerous too. I mean, Pittsburgh, when they beat San Jose, they did it for Trevor Daley. And you ask any of them, Trevor Daley was the big driving force behind that championship. Now, he didn't do it on the ice, necessarily, but he was solid on the ice. But it was because they wanted to win for him. So, okay, I gotta cut this rant short. I'm sorry. I'm getting off this, but just remember, stats are not always everything. They don't always signify who will win in the playoffs, because the stats are different come playoff time. They are. Alright, other than that, I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And if you have, thank you. And thank you all for watching either way. And other than that, make sure to like, comment, and share, and I'll see you all next video. Bye, everybody.